Fela Kuti is perhaps the biggest music star to have emerged from the African continent in the 20th century. Not only did he create a big shift in music by creating Afrobeat, he also triggered political awareness.
Tomorrow, next month, I'll be president of this country.
The heritage he has left has constantly been evolving since his death in 1997. A new exhibition celebrating the life of the Nigerian star has arrived at Paris's Philharmonie. France 24 met up with his son Femi and grandson Made to discuss this once-in-a-generation musician.
Femi and Maddie, thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you for having us.
Can you tell us a little bit about this exhibition and all the musical events that are surrounding it?
Well, I mean, it was tedious compiling everything. They had to come to Nigeria, get all the information in Lagos in our museum for my father, the albums, press.
The Fela Kuti Rebellion Afrobeat exhibition is open to the public until the 11th of June 2023 and is a great way to immerse oneself into the life of this innovative artist.
We wanted to design the first exhibition that would unfold Fela's entire musical and political trajectory using archives and unpublished photographs, and that would allow us to get as close as possible to Fela's music and his political struggles.
Fela's work is immense, also in terms of iconography. He knew how to control his image with all the outfits he was wearing on stage. Through his clothes, Fela was asserting a very strong African identity.
My father was the pianist of his father's school, my grandfather, and he had to learn his grandfather's compositions, he was the first Nigerian to record for the BBC in 1918 or 2021, something like this. So he grew up knowing this, fluent in his language. He goes to England, he studies classical music. He gets introduced to Miles Davis. He goes crazy for jazz, Miles Davis. He comes back, he forms his band. He loves high life from Ghana, but he doesn't want to be seen as that. So he creates his own kind of high life, which is like Afro high life, a lot of jazz input. And then his mother tells him, this won't work. You need to find something. And then he goes to America and then sits on the piano and does his first Afrobeat tune, which was called Frustrations. And BBC used to play this song every morning. Dum 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 bum bum ba ba da bam bam. So every morning BBC played this. And then his first hit was Jenkoku, and then he just had hit after hit after hit.
You started playing with your father when you were in your mid-teens, and then you literally grew up around the shrine, and then joined your own father as quite a young person. What was it like? I'm going to go first off. What was it like being Fela Kuti's son? That's a difficult personal question.
I think it had more of a negative effect, really. Everybody around was, oh, you're such a great saxophonist, you are such a great musician, and I was very lousy. In Calcutta, the community was more like, they were just praising me for what I wasn't. So I think that was very negative. The good thing there was I had the experience to watch my father firsthand, see him, how he wrote his songs, because I started to live in Calcutta, and then joining the band to really be on stage with him and see his charisma or he wasn't the same person you met off stage, really.
And what about you being the grandson of?
I got the best position because I was not Fela's son, because I don't know if I could have survived that. Because Fela was very complex as a father. He didn't want his children to be... He didn't give them priority of being his children. He always evened out everything in his household. So he didn't even allow them to call him dad or father. Everybody had to call him by his first name. And he treated them equally as he would anybody that came into his house. So I don't know how I would have taken that. Whereas I have the benefit of learning from him and being inspired by his craft and his integrity as a grandson. I have the privilege of having an actual very good father to, raise me and support me through my life. He's definitely my biggest influence musically and ideologically, because he's always managed to find balance between the struggle, his music, and family. And he always took me on tour with him as a child. I missed so many classes. I missed a lot of classes. That's probably why I was failing in primary school.
We're talking to two men, but women had a very important role in Afrobeat culture from great-great-grannies and also Afro-American singers. Can you tell us a little bit about the input of women and how it manifested in the culture?
I start from my two sisters. They used to be part of my band. My elder sister used to choreograph all the dance steps for the dancers and even the horn section. My grandmother was an activist. You could say the backbone to my father's ideology, because as a young boy, she used to take him to all her political meetings. She was the first to tell him to play a kind of music that his people will relate with. And he goes to America, he meets the Black Panthers, he starts to read books on Malcolm X, and comes back, and everything comes to play. And he's wondering why Africa is so down, or should I say oppressed. And then he goes to meet the cultural minister, who kinds of walks him out of the office. He gets very angry and he becomes very political.
There has not been anybody in this whole politics in Africa. Only two people have walked on the streets to follow people to where they are going. Nkrumah and my mother. What are you talking about? All this nonsense that you have hanging around here, they sit down in cars, man.
He was a warrior. Every time he was put down, he used the music to come out fighting again. He was beaten up, he would come out, he would think, ba 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 ba. It was all, and we saw him make this music. We saw him put the drums, we saw him put the horns, we saw him put the bass, we saw him go into this trance, we saw him put the lyrics. As soon as he composes it, he knew it was trouble, but he waited, he got arrested, he got beaten. His mother died in the process. And so, this is Fela.
Music is the weapon. Music is the thing of the future. Music is the weapon of the future.
And he did say, that music was the weapon of the future. In 2022, how would you say that hold? I'm going to ask you, Maddie.
Weapon of the future. I guess because music is a universal language, it's something that can't be very strictly defined because we don't really understand how it works. We don't know how it makes us feel happy or makes us feel sad or feel loved or prepares us for a fight. Fela really felt it was the most effective way of progress.
When he died in '97, suddenly the government in Nigeria celebrated him, backed the shrine and everything, when he'd had such a chaotic and relationship with them. How did that feel at the time?
This was long after he died, because even when he died, his death was more of the people celebrating his life. Mm-hmm. And the government didn't really have a hold into stopping that, from his burial to the aftermath. Even when they tried to, the papers were saying he died of AIDS, people didn't care. Mm. People just celebrated his life, what he stood for. When we built the shrine in his honor, first, the old shrine was taken from us because the family that owned it were in a battle for about a decade with him. So we lost that land, but we used his back catalogue, the money there, to buy the new shrine, and built it. Building it, we had 8 years of harassment by the government. Mm-hmm. It took the international community to petition the Lagos state government, and so many artists came to our aid. Like Erykah Badu was coming, Anthony Joshua, the president of France was there, and Naomi Campbell, musicians. All the top artists in Nigeria have come at one point in time to celebrate the celebration, the biggest festival right now in the country. So all this was pressure on the government to accept the importance of Fela's legacy.
So you'd say the legacy is still in kind of transformation time at the minute?
He was probably the greatest composer from Africa in the 21st century, easily. His music has trickled down to
many bands and so
his
many genres of
generation,
music.
the generation below him. Everybody is wondering, how did this man come up with
Afrobeat.
such sweet melody, so political, socially conscious, fun sometimes. His dressing, I mean, it was just unique.
The minute Nigeria is, blowing up in the world, Burna Boy is like the head boy, shall we put it for this. Why do you think Nigeria is such a hotbed for music making, and who are your current favourite artists?
I'll put it this way. I would love more musicians to be in the forefront and not artists, because that is what will sustain the music scene.
What is happening now?
So when you can't write the music, or you're buying songs or buying the beats and all this, you don't define Fela. Fela was, like I said, complete. He was a composer, multi-instrumentalist. So I would love to see more young people playing musical instruments, be in the forefront, showing the integrity of the African continent.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
They observe. They contact us. They report, film, photograph. They are the voice of the voiceless. Your eyes in the far-flung reaches of the world. The Observers, a network of 5,000 committed citizens working with France 24.
One of our observers in Côte d'Ivoire, Gaspard.
Amateur footage and testimonials checked by our journalists and broadcast weekly on The Observers, on France 24 and observers.france24.com.